Then a city councilman answered this way. He said, Mr. Moynihan, I want to answer you. He said, you know, sir, I'm a city councilman in a borough. I don't even have a heart big enough sometimes to bear all of the heartaches and the struggles my family faces. You're asking me why I'm not bearing the struggle of my whole community and my whole borough? Sir, if you want me to listen to the heartbeat of every person here and the heartache of every person, this is what he said, you may as well ask me to listen to the sound of the heartbeat of every squirrel and the sound of every blade of grass growing. The noise would be deafening on the other side of silence. That's what he says. You may as well ask me to listen to the sound of every blade of grass growing and the heartbeat of every squirrel. The noise would be deafening on the other side of silence. And when I read that, I began to think about it. It's true. You cannot bear the heartache of a whole world, not even your whole community. There's only one place in the world where there's an aggregate of human suffering. That's in the heart of God. What God does is take those heartaches and those struggles, break them down into bearable size portions, put some into your heart, some into your heart, some into mine, and makes that bearable burden with individualized capacities. I hear of so many needs, and sometimes I have to say, I really can't meet it. But I also have to answer before God, what is the need that I have chosen to meet? What is the heartache that He has given to me that I am to carry before this world? I'm a Christian apologist with a small organization that is in 10 different countries and about 30, 35 apologists in our ranks and 100 odd people serving here in different capacities. And you know what? Sometimes I find that burden too heavy to bear. It's rather large and rather vast, and yet that's what God has called me to do, to take the gospel message undergirded by apologetics into hostile arenas and adversarial settings. We are not masochists. We don't like to get into tough situations, but that's what God has called us to do. And that's the burden that He's put on my heart. We go into 4 arenas: political, academic, business, and the arts. That's our calling, because these 4 arenas, I believe, shape a culture. That's my calling, to take the gospel into these hostile arenas, challenge the happy pagan so that they will see their lostness apart from God. What is the burden you're willing to carry for God? What is the burden you're willing to carry? Are you willing to tonight say to Him, in my nation or in my land or in my calling, I want you to pour out your burden on my heart? Some of you may be blessed financially. God is asking you to learn to give generously, to give to the causes that are needy. Some of you may be blessed in extraordinary teaching capacities. Get involved in your church. Teach, multiply, mentor young people. Some of you may have the gift of connecting with the ordinary person on the street. Don't let those moments go by. Carry a burden that God has given to you. You know, I find it fascinating, and I remind myself of this, and I'm not being critical. Francis Schaeffer was one of the greatest philosophers of the latter part of the last century. And for whatever reason, his son Frankie Schaeffer, walking closely with God once upon a time, then renounced that belief and went into a weird extremist type of belief system. His mother, Edith Schaeffer, passed away just 2 or 3 months ago, I believe it was. He wrote a tribute to his mom that is absolutely spellbinding. And it was published, of all places, in a liberal newspaper called the Huffington Post. And you know what he said? He said, my mother loved me through all of my behavior and all of my arrogant self and all of the various areas. He said, one of the books I wrote was so profane. And my mother never wrote a word against it to me. She just loved me through all of those times. And he described how she nurtured him in that love, even in his derelict years. Fascinating. The father was the apologist. This tribute is to his mother. And at the end of that tribute in Huffington Post, eulogizing his mother, he said, "Mother, you have won, I believe." You have won. Actually, I think he used the word triumph. You have triumphed, and I believe. And as I read that, I thought to myself, all of the arguments, all of the apologetic, never penetrated into his heart. It was the love of a mother and the faithful, devoted heart that she had for him over the years ultimately pierced that encrustation and touched the tender spot of his heart. Don't underestimate what you can do. Never underestimate. Some of you may say, "I'm not cerebrally driven. I don't have all the ability." That's fine. This world would be pretty boring if all we did was sit around a pizza and talked philosophy. Ask God what it is He wants you to do to help change the nation. You will never lighten any load until you feel the pressure in your own soul. He felt a pathos for his people.